Gopi Jana Vallabha Girdharidhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girdharidhari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girdharidhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Vishabham Sabharaj Gita Sto Desasima Desi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Rajala Prabhupada Ki Jai Vishabham Sabharaj Gita Sto Desasima Bhakti Siddhanta Sajita Guru Prabhupada Ki Go Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 25, The Glories of Devotional Service, Text 17. Tadā puruṣa ātmānaṁ kevalam prakṛteḥ param nirantaraṁ svayaṁ-jyotir ānimānam akhaṇḍitam tadā puruṣa ātmānam kevalam prakṛteḥ param nirantaram svayam-jyotir aṇimānam akhaṇḍitam tadā puruṣa ātmānam kevalam prakṛteḥ param nirantaram svayam-jyotir aṇimānam akhaṇḍitam Vaishnavis. Tadā, then, puruṣa, the individual soul, ātmānaṁ, himself, kevalam, pure, prakṛteḥ, param, transcendental to material existence, nirantaram, non-different, svayam-jyotir, self-effulgent, ānimānam, infinitesimal, akhaṇḍitam, not fragmented. Translation. At that time, the soul can see himself to be transcendental to material existence and always self-effulgent, never fragmented, although very minute in size. Purport. In the state of pure consciousness, or Kṛṣṇa consciousness, one can see himself as a minute particle, non-different from the Supreme Lord. As stated in Bhagavad-gītā, the jīva, or the individual soul, is eternally part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Just as the sun rays are minute particles of the brilliant constitution of the sun, so a living entity is a minute particle of the Supreme Spirit. The individual soul and the Supreme Lord are not separated as in material differentiation. The individual soul is a particle from the very beginning. One should not think that because the individual soul is a particle, it is fragmented from the whole spirit. Māyāvāda philosophy enunciates that the whole spirit exists, but a part of it, which is called the jīva, is entrapped by illusion. This philosophy, however, is unacceptable because spirit cannot be divided like a fragment of matter. That part, the jīva, is eternally apart. As long as the Supreme Spirit exists, his part and parcel also exists. As long as the sun exists, the molecules of the sun's rays also exist. The jīva particle is estimated in the Vedic literature to be 1/10,000th the size of the upper portion of a hair. It is therefore infinitesimal. The Supreme Spirit is infinite, but the living entity or the individual soul is infinitesimal, although it is not different in quality from the Supreme Spirit. Two words in this verse are to be particularly noted. One is nirantaram, which means non-different or of the same quality. The individual soul is also expressed here as ānimānam. Ānimānam means infinitesimal. The Supreme Spirit is all-pervading, but the very small spirit is the individual soul. Akhaṇḍitam means not exactly fragmented, but constitutionally always infinitesimal. No one can separate the molecular parts of the sunshine from the sun, but at the same time, the molecular part of the sunshine is not expansive as the sun itself. Similarly, the living entity, by his constitutional position, is qualitatively the same as the Supreme Spirit, but he is infinitesimal. Translation again. At that time, the soul can see himself to be transcendental to material existence and always self-effulgent, never fragmented, although very minute in size. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Sri Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This is Lord Kapila Dev instructing his mother Devamrita. Now, actually, as the mother of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a devotee taking that role in Vatsalya Ras, she knows everything. Still, for the sake of informing others, she's making her inquiries. And naturally, she feels humility, even though she, as the mother of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, knows the truths of bhakti, yet she's inquiring for the benefit of others. She presents herself with such contrition. You are my transcendental I, obtained after so many lifetimes. You are the axe by which I can cut down the tree of material entanglement. She's showing you the proper way to receive transcendental knowledge. We can also think of Sanatana Goswami approaching Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Varanasi after having escaped from prison and trekked all the way from Bengal to Varanasi and meeting up with Lord Chaitanya who was there with Tapal Mishra and Chandrasekhar Acharya. When Sanatana Goswami showed up at the door, the devotees couldn't recognize him as a devotee. Lord Chaitanya told them, there is a Vaishnava at the door. Go let him in. So the devotee went to the door, saw someone who looked like he had been, indeed, traveling through the forest for days, not eating much and not shaving. And so the devotee went back to Lord Chaitanya and reported, I didn't see any devotee there. And Lord Chaitanya instructed, that's Sanatana Goswami, let him in. And when Sanatana Goswami entered, Lord Chaitanya got up and embraced Sanatana Goswami, who again was looking like he had been trekking through the hills and forests for days. Still, Lord Chaitanya embraces him. And Sanatana, what does he say? Don't touch me, don't touch me. Lord Chaitanya is embracing Sanatana. Lord Mahaprabhu is crying, and Sanatana is crying, and the devotees are watching in astonishment. Again, Sanatana asks, don't touch me, my Lord, don't touch me. He's feeling so lowly and unqualified. Not simply externally contaminated, he thought of himself, but also internally contaminated due to his association in the Mohammedan regime. But what did Lord Chaitanya say? I'm touching you to purify myself. This is the Supreme Personality of Godhead speaking to his devotee. I'm touching you to purify myself. Tirti kurvanti tirtani. You are a mobile place of pilgrimage. So after some more exchanges, Sanatana wants to present himself for understanding. And he falls at Lord Chaitanya's feet, clasping his feet, clasping Lord Chaitanya's feet with his hands, and presents himself. Nij jati, nij sangi, patita adama, ku vishaya kupe, pati, yukoinainu janama. I am so fallen. I am low class. All my associates are fallen and sinful. I've passed my whole life at the bottom of the well of sinful materialism. This is Sanatana Goswami teaching us how to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, Sanatana Goswami is said by the Acharyas to be the Sambandha Acharya, the Acharya who is especially benefiting us with understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, understanding that we have a relationship, Sambandha again. And Rupa Goswami is said to be the Abhideya Acharya. He describes the relationships with Kṛṣṇa, the rasas, the various flavors of loving relationships with Kṛṣṇa. And then Raghunath Das is said to be the Prayojana Acharya. He delves into very confidential matters of Krishna's intimate associates and gives instruction for how to attain their grace. So Sanatana Goswami, nevertheless, is, in spite of his exalted status, is presenting himself in such a humble way, teaching us, just as Devahuti is teaching us by her approach to Kapila. He's her son from the ordinary point of view, but she is not bewildered in that way by thinking he's an ordinary person. She wants to take advantage. You are my transcendental eye. You are my axe for cutting down the tree of material entanglement. You know this picture on the front of Bhagavatam of Lord Kapila sitting on an asana and Devahuti sitting on a lower seat in front of him with her hands offering and listening. My mother, who's very, very focused Christian, we'll say focused, she had a brief burst of interest in bhakti, and she saw this picture, this painting somewhere. And so when I went to visit her, my yearly visit, she sat me down on the couch in the living room and then sat on the floor in front of me and said, like that, "Is this how you do it?" It was a brief moment like that. Otherwise, from her, it's usually, there's one way only. Anyway, I thought it was quite interesting that Devahuti is doing that to her son. She wants the full benefit, just as Sanatana Goswami is considering himself to be completely fallen. And he says, and he doesn't simply say, "I'm fallen, I'm low class." He presents the facts as he sees it. Tai Satyamani. People think I'm a great scholar, and I love the way Prabhupada describes it. They think I'm a great scholar, and I'm such a fool, I believe it. But how can I be such a great scholar? How can I be intelligent when I don't know who I am? I don't know why the threefold miseries continue to give me so much trouble. Number 3, if I don't know the first 2 things, who I am and why the material energy is giving me so much trouble, how can I benefit myself? So what does Lord Chaitanya say? You know all these answers you know all the answers to your questions, but you're inquiring for the sake of keeping the record straight, so to speak, making everything clear for everyone else. You're a sadhu, and a sadhu inquires in order to produce clarity. That's what you're doing. Nevertheless, Mahaprabhu proceeded to answer. And Krishnadas Kaviraj explains that just as Lord Chaitanya empowered Ramananda Roy to answer Mahaprabhu's questions, similarly, Lord Chaitanya is empowering Sanatana Goswami to ask questions to which Lord Chaitanya will supply the answers. So in both cases, whether Ramananda Roy answering Mahaprabhu's questions or Sanatana Goswami asking the questions and Mahaprabhu answers, you see, in both cases, you see the empowerment of the Supreme Personality of Godhead present. And of course, Lord Chaitanya clarified the constitutional position of the living entity. We are eternally the servants of Kṛṣṇa. Now it is, as the Shastra points out, it is easy by your own intelligence, unaided by any transcendental guidance, it's easy to understand that you are a spiritual entity. Of course, in this degraded day and age, that ease seems so difficult. People cannot understand how they are different from the body and mind, or else they have some wishy-washy understanding, yeah, we're all spiritual. But when it comes down to it, all their activities are utter materialism. But in a normal human civilization, which we don't have today, you can speculate. You can figure it out. You can calculate. I'm not this body. And with a little more intelligence, you can figure out that there's an all-pervading spiritual energy known as Brahman. These things are easily figured out in a real human civilization, as I said, but we don't have one today. And so even these easy aspects of the Supreme Absolute Truth are so difficult for people to grasp. So it is not a great thing, normally, to understand that you're not the body. It is not a great thing to understand as an all-pervading spiritual energy. With proper exercise of your intelligence, you can figure that out. But that's as far as you get on your own. So in that way, understanding Bhagavan is not possible unless you have knowledge, unless you have guidance. Otherwise, you'll just end up thinking the ultimate reality is impersonal. You cannot speculate Kṛṣṇa. The prayers by the demigods, when Kṛṣṇa was within Devaki. Of course, what do you mean by Kṛṣṇa within Devaki? We have Janmashtami coming up. It's always wonderful here in New Dwarka how you go from Rath Yatra and shift gears into Janmashtami. It's amazing. Looking at Lord Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra, it's just so obvious they enjoyed their ride. Even to a dullard as me, it's so obvious they had a good time. And then looking at Shri Shri Rukmini Dwarkadesh, I get bewildered every Mangal Arti. Because the way the deities are dressed in their night clothes, I keep thinking it's so opulent, that's their day clothes. So I keep getting confused. I'm responding. My body and mind are responding like it's 7:15 a.m. deity greeting. But I have to no, this is Mangal Arati. Because the deities are dressed so opulently, their night clothes look like the day clothes in so many other temples. So, you can't speculate Kṛṣṇa into existence. So Kṛṣṇa is in the womb of Devaki, but he's not there biologically. Kṛṣṇa is everywhere. So what's the problem if he chooses to seem like he's manifesting from Devaki? Actually, he starts in the purified consciousness of Vasudeva, and then he's transferred. He transfers himself to the purified consciousness of Devaki. So while he's there within Devaki, of course he's within everyone and everything, but for the sake of the pastime, he's there within Devaki. And the demigods are offering prayers. And what do they say? By your appearance, you put an end to all speculation. Otherwise, how would anyone know what is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? We can't speculate that. We can't think it up on our own. You can figure out that you're not the body on your own. You can figure out there's an all-pervading spiritual energy, Brahman, on your own. But you can't figure out Kṛṣṇa on your own. So this is why in a normal human civilization, we don't give so much credit to people understanding they're not the body. But again, we don't have a normal human civilization today. So if someone says, oh, I know I'm not the body, we say, wow, what a great Mahatma. You know you're not the body. At least you have some idea. But actually, Vaishnavas don't give so much credit to that. Nor do they give so much credit to someone who's figured out there's impersonal Brahman. That's as far, as we said, that's as far as you can go with your own intelligence. Beyond that, to get to Paramatma, you need guidance, you need the Shastra, and what to speak of to get to Bhagavan realization. Lord Kapila Dev is teaching Sankhya, the real Sankhya. As the first verse of this chapter says, Kapilas tattva Sankhyata Bhagavan Atmamaya. Lord Kapila Dev has come to teach knowledge of Sankhya. Real Sankhya means to analyze the whole universe. Why the whole universe? Analyze the entire prakriti, the entire material energy, and understand that it's coming from puruṣa, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Atheistic Sankhya. And it's interesting. You know the book Teachings of Lord Kapila Dev, produced by the BBT. I remember working on that book here in New Dwarka in 1976. And Prabhupada was very firm. Don't just put the title, Teachings of Lord Kapila Dev, put Son of Devahuti. So we were wondering, well, you know, what's the big deal? We didn't say that, of course, but we were humbly wondering. There is an atheistic Kapila, and even though that atheistic Kapila existed long time ago, still Prabhupada wanted to make everything so clear, undeniably clear for now into the future. This is Kapila, the son of Devahuti, not the atheist rascal. The atheistic Kapila indeed taught analysis of the material energy, but no puruṣa, just prakṛteḥ, no supreme personality of Godhead. So this is why Srila Prabhupada so strongly wanted to create a separation, that Kapila, the atheist, is over there, and here we have the son of Devahuti. And we're getting information. How? We are eternally an individual. This is often a difficult point for people to understand. The eternality of our existence. Kṛṣṇa says in the second chapter of Bhagavad-gītā, Natvevaham jatunasham natvam neme janadapa. Never was there a time when we were not an individual. Never will there be a time. You'd be surprised how many persons today are afraid of being eternal. It's like, I'm having a tough time as it is now, and you say I just go on and on and on without end? Unconsciously and consciously, conditioned souls these days want to bring it to an end. Enough is enough. Let me have my fair share and more of sense enjoyment, and I'll call it a day. They actually say like that. I've had a good life. I'm ready to go. I've had a good life. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm ready to go. I've had a good life. I've done some things I wanted to do. That's enough. That's an indirect way of saying, I don't know what's coming next. I'm afraid. I've had my fair share, I think, of hedonism, of enjoyment. Okay. I don't know where I'm going next, but it's not important. I had my fair share, and a bit more, too. What does Kṛṣṇa say in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad-gītā? Vitaraga bhayakrodha, becoming free from attachment, fear, and anger. What's the fear? Prabhupada explains in the purport, fear of having an eternal identity. You have to think about that, because you might, your first thought would be that, well, everyone wants to stay alive. No one wants to die. But people are fatigued from living a material life. They hope death will be a relief. That's why they go for euthanasia. Let me just end it, and I'll just enter into peace. There'll be just rest. They think that's what happens after death. So this is a great tragedy that there's a lack of interest in how to exist eternally with the Supreme Eternal. At most, you get religious platitudes. You'll be home. You'll be there with Him, but no knowledge. I know. I always tell this to my mother, because when she gets on my case about there's one way and one way only, I say, and her favorite preacher, he was the biggest evangelical in the 20th century. He would speak at baseball stadiums full of believers. So I said to my mother, you know what I read that he said? I read it with my own eyes. He said, when I get to heaven, I'm going to drive on golden roads in a yellow Cadillac. And I'll be attending parties hosted by angels. My mother, she said, he didn't really say that, did he? I said, yes, he did. What can you do if you have no knowledge? You have to speculate like that. Here, Srimad Bhagavatam is giving you the full understanding of the spirit soul. It's not enough to understand that you're not the body. It's not even enough to understand that you're qualitatively equal with Kṛṣṇa. What is the relationship? This is the unique contribution of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Māyāvādis, they understand you're not the body. They understand there's an all-pervading spiritual energy. Beyond that, though, no knowledge. In fact, vehemence that all the transcendental variety of Kṛṣṇa is an illusion. It's not transcendental. You say it's transcendental, but that's why they're called Māyāvādis. What is the actual absolute truth? They say that's Maya, Kṛṣṇa's name, form, qualities, and pastimes. Maybe the next class we'll talk about how Lord Chaitanya indicated he would rather associate with drunkards and sensualists than be around Māyāvādis, no matter how austere and so-called Vedantic the Māyāvādis are. And we may talk about how Advaita Acharya wanted to provoke Lord Chaitanya's anger because Advaita Acharya was tired of being treated by Mahaprabhu as Mahaprabhu's senior, because Advaita Acharya is the godbrother of Ishwar Puri, and Ishwar Puri is Mahaprabhu's spiritual master. So Mahaprabhu would always offer reverence to Advaita Acharya, and Advaita Acharya couldn't stand it. I'm your eternal servant. There's nothing more to our relationship than that. Of course, as we know, Advaita Acharya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead also. You see, the Supreme Absolute Truth does not simply expand himself into parts and parcels, but to be complete, to be truly Om Purnam, the Supreme Personality of Godhead expands himself into other Supreme Personalities of Godhead. In other words, not simply parts does he expand himself into, but also other complete wholes. That's really being complete. So Advaita Acharya is an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it's he who called Lord Chaitanya into this world. But he's so much tired of being treated as Lord Chaitanya's senior. He wants the nectar of chastisement. So he constructs a whole plot how to get Lord Chaitanya to physically beat him. But maybe next time. So we are grateful to Lord Kapila Dev for his instructions to Devahuti, and we are grateful to Devahuti for asking the right questions. Just as Sanatana Goswami asked the right questions to Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya explained the eternal individuality of the living entity in perfection, the essential, fundamental understanding. Any questions? Yes, Archita Prabhu.
All right, thank you for a very nice class. Sometimes all of us, but especially maybe new devotees, may wonder why this reference to Māyāvāda all the time. It seems like a group from, ancient history, not really relevant today, but I'll give you an example of why it's relevant. Yesterday there was a new Bhakti Jnana. She bought your book and you signed it. So she has a YouTube channel, and she put a video of our Rath Yatra that happened recently. She put a video. And some guy wrote, worship of form is nice in the beginning, but ultimately, it's only formlessness. So get over it.
Yes, nirvishesha shunyavadi paschachadeshatarine. Most persons are unconscious about how they're influenced by Māyāvāda concoctions. I believe in the spirit. I believe in the the whatever. No understanding of the science of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And you can understand why they would have no understanding. You can't speculate that. As I said, with your intelligence, you can figure out you're not the body. With your intelligence, you can figure out there's an all-pervading spiritual energy. That's as far as you go with your own intelligence. Otherwise, you need a guru, you need the Shastra. So what can people do left to their own resources, especially in this degraded day and age? They want to be spiritual sometimes. What does that mean? The religions that they know about contain very scant metaphysical information, so therefore they have no other recourse than to speculate. This is why our book distribution is so important. You may wonder, how can I approach people with books that have titles that people can't even pronounce? But, for example, I remember Nectar of Instruction, Upadeshamrita, when we were working on that here in Los Angeles. And so the BBT trustee at the time, before our current blessing that we have, the BBT trustee at the time said, okay, Upadeshamrita, Nectar of Instruction, I've checked it out. It'll be a book for devotees. We'll print a few thousand. He informed Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada wrote back, this is a mass distribution book for teaching people what is morality. So we printed 10,000 of them. Another time, we were working on science of self-realization. I think maybe to this very day you may distribute science of self-realization, yes. So we thought it was a great idea. There was such excitement. Mukunda Maharaj was here then, Brahmachari, and BTG staff, the BBT English department, all happening across the street there. And so this idea of science of self-realization came up at one of our meetings. And everyone, as I said, thought, this is such a great idea. This is the cows moo, the cats meow, this is it. Wow. And so we produced the book, a collection of BTG articles. We produced the book, and Prabhupada received a copy. And the devotees were very excited about the presentation to him of this new kind of book. Prabhupada took it and said, this is all right, but Bhagavatam is more important. He had his own vision. He didn't criticize. He said, it's all right, but Bhagavatam is more important. He also told us that because at that time, Back to Godhead magazine, and we were printing like sometimes 1 million Back to Godheads a month. Prabhupada said the most important part of Back to Godhead is the centerfold where it had excerpts from Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's the most important part of Back to Godhead. So he clearly wanted to educate the general public in the science of the Supreme, in Bhagavad Dharma. And our tendency is generally, well, we don't want to overdose the people. But Prabhupada was quite frontal. Kṛṣṇa is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He wanted all his energies focused on presenting Kṛṣṇa, Bhagavad-gītā, Srimad Bhagavatam. Not that he denied so-called gradual approaches, but he, knowing how much time he had left and knowing how much time we have left, he wanted to floor the accelerator pedal. And as a result, practically the whole world knows who is Kṛṣṇa to some degree. Oh, at least they know he's the one that those Kṛṣṇa bhaktas think is God. At least they know that much. Anything else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. We discussed how like Paramatma realization, Bhagavan realization are inaccessible to mental speculators. But within the world of theology, how exclusive are things like Bhagavan realization to our tradition?
When you say Bhagavan realization, that includes Brahman and Paramatma realization. So without those preliminary steps, you don't have full Bhagavan realization. Kṛṣṇa does have an effulgence. Kṛṣṇa does exist as a supersoul in everyone's heart. But that is all, those are all subordinate aspects of Bhagavan. So if you don't understand Brahman, you don't understand Paramatma as parts of Bhagavan, as partial aspects of Bhagavan, you don't understand Bhagavan. So yes, now I hope you can understand what Bhagavatam is giving you is uniquely complete. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.